be said with wind farms and solar projects as well?
Yeah. Well, I guess the answer in terms of understanding why some communities that are near wind farms aren't happy with them, and why some coal mining communities are nearby coal mines and they're very happy and some are unhappy. There's quite often a degree of variation around how good they are at locally engaging their communities and winning their support. And sometimes there's a national and regional or international interest that's even different. So we know, for instance, of some examples of coal mines where the communities are really supportive, but increasingly there's a lack of regional or international support. Similarly with wind farms, there are now more and more wind farms that have had community concerns that hadn't been dealt with, and that led up to sort of increasing national concerns, even if it's been good for climate change. So our view is that really we should be seeing good community relations to resolve the concerns that people have when and before they actually end up with the consent, the legal regulatory consent. There has to be what we call a social licence. And we think that if they try and earn a social licence, then they'll end up having a strategy that will leave them in good stead all the way through. And that's not just something you do at the community level, that's also something you need to do at the regional and national level. And if that was done more, we would probably have more acceptance of renewable options.
Alan Jones.
Well, I think that your point, Lauren, has a lot of validity. Again, I think this is an area where politicians have failed to properly explain what the real issues are. The reality is that solar, and this is a decision the electorate must make, solar and wind can't survive without significant taxpayer subsidies. 80% of Australian energy comes from coal-fired power, and it's about $79 a kilowatt hour. Wind power is about $1,502 a kilowatt hour. That is unaffordable. If you take that power and feed it into the grid, then every person watching this program has electricity bills going through the roof. Now, the argument that government is ventilating is that therefore we'll subsidise renewable energies to the tune of 20-odd billion between now, that's wind and solar, between now and 2020. What I think the government has said is, are there alternative energy sources on which taxpayers' money can be spent, which would yield to the consumer cheaper energy than, for example, the wind power cost of $1,500 a kilowatt hour as opposed to coal-fired power of $79. So again, it's an issue that the public have to have explained to them so they can understand that when we've got, and most of these wind power stations are owned by foreign interests, your dollars are being thrown at them to subsidise them for creating the kind of energy that allegedly we seek and calling it renewable energy.
Let's hear from Mark Butler.
I'm not sure I followed most of that. We've had a terrible 18 months in renewable energy policy in Australia. We got to the position the year before last where we were one of the 4 most attractive countries in the world in which to invest in renewable energy, up with the powerhouses of Germany, China and the US. And we've seen since then an enormous dent in investor confidence. Some of it being overseas investment, but some of it, much of it, contrary to what Alan just said, being domestic investment in large-scale renewable energy. We need to find that confidence again because renewable energy is an enormous part of this nation's future. We have some of the best solar, wind, geothermal and wave energy resources here on this continent. We have a very energy-intensive, emissions-intensive economy, which we need to transition to a cleaner way of doing things, and renewable energy will be a big part of it. And it's not, frankly, just how politicians are talking about this. A significant reason why we have such a problem is because of people like Alan Jones and other media identities talking down renewable energy, getting the Prime Minister on to talk about bravely how he wanted to reduce, and apparently has to spell reduce out to you, R-E-D-U-C-E. But I can tell you, Labor is going to I-N-C-R-E-A-S-E renewable energy. I can tell you we're going to do that.
Oh, yes, with tax taxpayers' money.
EXPAND, GROW.
Don't worry about that, Mark.
But I can tell you this, you get Tony Abbott in there, and I don't know what stick you hit them with, and what you get them to say all these
You should come
stupid
along and
things.
find out.
These stupid things like it's going to push up power prices. Well, Tony Abbott's own hand-picked panel, led by Dick Warburton, who's got views closer to yours than mine about these issues.
said?
Even his panel said that power prices would be higher without the renewable energy target than with the renewable energy target, because pushing all of that additional electricity into the system depresses wholesale power prices and is good for all households and all businesses. We need a serious reboot to the community debate about renewable energy.
Do you think
and
these
it's not
people will
just
be here?
politicians, it's media identities like you, Alan,
Do you think
who
these
play
outfits-
a very serious role in
Did
this.
you think these outfits would invest in renewable energy if there wasn't massive subsidies by the taxpayer?
What do you think? These coal-fired power stations just appeared overnight? You talk about the price of coal-fired power. They were all built under taxpayers' dollars. They've all been fully depreciated. So you're comparing apples and oranges.
That's
Okay, hang on a second. Tim Fischer wants to jump in. Go ahead.
Renewables is only part of the equation. And of course, wave technology, exciting stuff happening in Western Australia again. Hot rocks in South Australia. Let's really pursue these renewables in a sensible way. But there's another aspect of this, and that's getting infrastructure right in this country once and for all, because congestion in our major cities is causing enormous extra use of energy in a wasteful way. Sydney and Melbourne should have a decent metro by 2020. If not earlier, if possible. High-speed rail would take 120 kilometres off the route between Sydney and Melbourne and would bring a lot of efficiency. And here's the final kicker. Imagine this scene. If you did it the most direct route, you'd build a very high-level bridge in the Brindabella between two short tunnels, and you'd actually put a wind farm of turbines within the bridge, so they don't stick out, they aren't ugly. Prime Minister, please take note. And they will generate renewable energy
Fischer,
as the trains go over the top.
I had no idea how you were going to bring that around to wind power. you did it. The train story and the wind
Build
story.
it into the bridge. Build it into the high-level bridge.
Jacqui Lambie, quick answer.
You were saying Germany's leading by example with renewable energy with this. Was that you?
No, I said it was along with Germany, China and the US, we were one of the 4 most attractive places to invest in renewable energy projects.
Okay, because Germany's gone leaps and bounds, but just so everybody knows this, they're paying about 38 cents a kilowatt for their energy. So it does raise energy, and in every bit of your power bills, you are paying about 3.6% of that into renewable. That's what you are paying. So that was done by a library study, just so you know that. But I'll tell you what, I think it's about time we open debate. And I think it's about time we open debate when it comes to our nuclear and uranium. We have 30% of the world's uranium here in Australia, and we're not sucking everything out of it that we should be. And I think it's about time we open it up. We talked about it, and we open it up for debate in the country.
That's what John Howard did.
And unfinished business, it should be returned to, along with the carbon challenge and educational tools. This whole energy equation we cannot ignore.
Okay.